All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. We're going to talk some college basketball now. Joining us now on the Morgan Bradley Alpha Insurance Tiger Line, Scott Griffin, to talk a little bit about the Tide and the Tigers last night. Scott, welcome into the show. It was
Yes,
a
sir.
good game last night between two good teams, I thought. Maybe two teams that we'll see in the second weekend of the tournament coming up. And it was the night when the lights went out in T-Town.
Yeah, there was bad weather here. I can vouch for that. I live an hour away, so
Yeah.
it was pretty nasty going on. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the lights, but I supposed it did. I don't know, but yeah, the lights went out, and I think Coleman Coliseum's kind of dark and dingy anyway. So even before the lights go out, it's not the greatest lighting anyway. It didn't bother Broom. He hit a jumper with the lights out, so
They do. I think Auburn was a
there's
little
that.
bit
Yeah.
better from 3-point range with the lights out.
All right. It's kind
But
of weird.
anyway, uh, as I said, a good college basketball game. Auburn's really their first tough test on the road.
Yeah.
Alabama played some sticky defense. It was a tough environment, big crowd there. And I thought the Tigers played a little bit tight, maybe, 9 turnovers in the first half, and Alabama hits a bunch of threes, and they were down by 14 at intermission.
Yeah. But they had to come back in the second half. They finally went into Broom. I thought they did a nice job of that and then kind of got away from it. My initial feeling is, wow, they didn't utilize Broom enough. But then you look, he's got 25 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks. So he played well, obviously. But I mean, he might could have had 35.
Right.
Maybe they could have gone into him even more. I think Alabama did a good job of getting Auburn to play the way they play, shooting some jump shots, maybe being in a hurry a little bit. And I don't think Auburn plays slow by any stretch of the imagination, but not many people play as fast as Alabama. So even slightly ramped up can be uncomfortable. And that's what Alabama does. They get you to do that kind of thing. So but look, it was a one possession game. It was a tight game. It's two good teams to your point. Auburn had not been tested like that on the road to your point. And I think Bruce Pearl's smart enough I think he said it before the game. We don't really know where we are. We're not as good as he was saying that he thinks they're not as good as people think they are. Maybe he's right, but at the end of the day, it's still a one possession game against a good team on their floor. So it doesn't affect Auburn at all. They're still in first place. They weren't going to go through the conference undefeated. Who does? And to me, it's almost a good thing to get a gauge of your team right here at the end of January.
Yeah. I think he was probably being kind in his post game comments. I think he thought Auburn was a little bit better than they played last night.
Yeah, I think so.
You got Aiden Holloway 0 for 7, and Jalen was 3 for 9. They didn't shoot it well. I thought they were a little bit bothered by what Alabama did defensively, but and I've said this before the season started, Scott. In a big game like that, my question is, who's going to step up on this Auburn team and make a big shot when you got to make a big shot? And Broom was there last night. Trey Donaldson, I thought, had a pretty good game last
Pretty
night.
good
But
game. Yeah.
outside of those two, I didn't see a whole lot.
Baker, and I can't remember Baker's other last name, the hyphen.
Chad Baker, Mazzara.
Yeah, he's really good too. And I thought he was solid. He missed the free throw and he tried to act like to take responsibility for that on Twitter. That's
Yeah,
silly. He played
yeah,
pretty well. That free throws with 3 seconds to go, even if you're 90%, you're really about a 65% shooter. Every human is.
mm-hmm.
So he shouldn't carry that. But yeah, to your point, I mean, I thought some guys didn't play well, some played well. It's a typical rival game. It's a typical difficult game, and also to your point, uh, Alabama did guard them well, but sometimes just the pace. There were some open looks that Auburn probably rushed or missed just because they had been guarded before. You know that as well. So, um, look, they had won every conference game by 11. They haven't been tested like this. They haven't had a close game. And although they lost, I still think it was a positive atmosphere and result for Auburn because they didn't lose by 12 and
Right.
crumble.
Not going to hurt them.
It was a one possession game.
Yeah.
And a 90% free throw shooter missed a free throw to tie it. Okay, well, how often is that going to happen? Not real often. So they'll learn from that. They'll grow from that. They're still in first place. They still control their own destiny. We're only, what, 6 games into an 18-game schedule. I mean, there's tons of basketball to be played.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the other thing, I'm picking on Auburn a little bit and playing the devil's advocate here, but
Yeah.
the other thing I think about last night is you got KD at the end of the game, and I mentioned Aiden before, and people have talked about this before, but Auburn's short guards, it's hard for those guys to get off a shot or get into the lane, get to the bucket in these big time games like last night.
Yeah. And Alabama's long and athletic, as you
Yeah.
know. I mean,
Yeah.
Sears is, I guess, their smallest, and he's 6'3". So they have Griffin 6'5" and has long arms. And, that's what Nate Oates recruits, long, athletic guys. So they do have length. They can get out on you, they can harass a shot. Auburn would have to penetrate, kick back, spot up guys. But again, I thought they had their best success when Broom was touching the ball. And look, Alabama's guilty of that. When they don't play well, their bigs don't touch the ball. They like to go inside out. And Auburn can go inside and score with Broom. So um, even though he had 25, like I said earlier, maybe he should have had 40. And they might would have gonna come out with a win. But we'll see how they adjust. And it'll probably be a completely different game at Neville Arena.
Yeah. And they have to go on the road this weekend to Mississippi State and
Then that's tough.
maybe get a
And
road
they're
win there.
staying on the road, Doug. I thought
Right.
that was interesting, because it ain't far. You and I've ridden the big county way from Tuscaloosa to Auburn's not that big a deal. I thought it was interesting that they didn't travel back last night, have today to regroup at home, and they wouldn't even have to get on the road for Mississippi State because, again, it's not that far, as you know, till mid-afternoon Friday. So I thought it was very interesting that he's staying on the road, you
Yeah.
know?
And they're going to practice in Tuscaloosa, as I understand,
Yeah.
today, somewhere at a small college.
Yeah, it's college or high school. Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
And then make the trip to Starkville to play Mississippi State. Talking with Scott Griffin about college basketball, a little bit of Alabama and Auburn last night. And Scott, I want to ask you about the conference as a whole right now. We've got some interesting things going on. Of course, Alabama lost to Tennessee big, and they come back and beat Auburn last night. Kentucky's lost a couple now. South Carolina, maybe they're the
Yeah,
surprise team in the conference. What do you think so far? As far as looks
yeah,
like we have 4 or 5 at the top here.
yeah. And Alabama beat them, so it's kind of schizophrenic.
Yeah,
And then Arkansas, who has talent, as you know, they're
struggling.
127 in the net.
Yeah.
127. Auburn's what, eighth? Alabama's sixth. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
got all these other teams. Tennessee's fourth, and Arkansas. It's weird to me.
It's odd how, and I've said this about the AP top 25. We got to get some new voters in there because you have Alabama at 6 or 9 in the net or whatever they are, but they're not in the top 25. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, because people look at record, you know that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they lost. They did not win any of their huge games. Normally they'll win one or two of those and would have been in the top 25. They didn't this year with their difficult schedule, and so they're penalized. But that's just people not providing depth, right? So um, I don't know. I think the league's still pretty good. I mean, I think I saw one forecast of 7 teams in. I couldn't name me off the top of my head. Obviously, Ole Miss, Auburn, uh, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky. That's 5 of them. You
South
know,
Carolina, maybe. Yeah.
South Carolina. Georgia's playing pretty good, but I don't
Decent.
know if they would get in.
Yeah.
LSU
LSU.
better than people thought. They had a one possession game last night
Right.
in Athens. So there's a lot of basketball to be played. Look, I think Tennessee's really good. I think they do a great job defensively, and I like defense and controlled atmosphere offensively when you get into March, and I think they do it well. So they're probably the best team in the league, but it could be Kentucky, it could be Auburn. At the end of the year, we don't know how guys are going to be playing.
Mm-hmm. And I think Bruce Pearl said that after the game last night or before the game, I can't remember, that he thought Tennessee was the best team right now in
Yeah,
the
I agree
SEC.
with that.
I was kind of leaning toward Kentucky when I saw the other night, saw their new guy, their 7-3 guy, dribbling behind his back and shooting the 3-pointer. So I thought, my goodness, because I saw Kentucky in Atlanta a few weeks ago against North Carolina, and I thought they're pretty good then. And if they add this guy, who's going to be able to beat them? But apparently, somebody has.
Right. And remember, Kentucky is always talented, but they're always young.
Yeah,
So young always comes up to bite you in some way. That old adage in coach talk is real because, very few freshmen go unscathed in their first year. And that's how Calipari lives, as you know. So, but that doesn't mean they're not talented to your point. So, and at the end of the year, they're really a sophomore anyway. So do they mature enough where they get over those mistakes and play well into the year? But look, there's not a dime's difference between Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, and then you probably got another level of Alabama and whoever right below them. So anything can happen in a tournament, and at the end of the year, a team gets hot. How many times have we seen that? A lot.
yeah,
So
that's what it takes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I thought we were talking a little bit last week and the week before, Scott, about the pieces of the puzzle that Bruce Pearl put together this year. Interesting mid majors, junior college, and that type of thing. And I thought, well, he's figured it out. He's figured out what works for Auburn, what works for him, and maybe his best coaching job in his 10 years at Auburn so far this year. Last night didn't work out that way, but it just seems like this team has the chemistry. They like each other. They're playing together. They got to figure out a way, to play a little tougher on the road, I think, after last night. But what do you think about that? Do you think what kind of
Well,
job has Pearl done so far?
I think he's done a very good job, and I think he's smart enough not to think he's got it figured out. I think the same thing is true with Oates. They both have changed some of their philosophy as they've gone, right? Look, it takes a certain kind of cat to play for Bruce Pearl. He's always on you. He's always coaching. He never shuts up, and I mean that as a compliment. He doesn't do Phil Jackson and let you play a little while and figure it out. He's constantly up and in your ear. You got to be a certain kind of guy to. He's like Saban to me a little bit. You got to weed out the chaff and take what he's trying to tell you, and it takes a certain kind of cat to flourish in that. So maybe he's figured out the mid majors that are freaking happy to be at Auburn, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm in the SEC. I'm at a major school. That they're going to play a different way than a guy that is thinking about the NBA already. And I think Oates figured that out with his team because this year on the transfer deal, he got a lot of older guys, right? The Estradas and guys like that. He didn't get young transfers or try to get 19 5 stars. They're both figuring out, yeah, I got to have talent for sure. I mean, let's be honest. Auburn's players are talented, but maybe I sacrifice a little talent for guys that are going to let me coach them.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's the way of the world right now in college football or basketball, probably any sport.
Those guys are hard to come by, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, you got to have talent. Players win games, but don't think coaching, especially in basketball, you're a basketball guy. Don't think coaching in basketball doesn't have applications where it helps. For sure it does. If it didn't, Virginia would never have gotten, to a championship. And
Right.
that just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting what Tony Bennett has done there, been able to do at Virginia. Of course, he's got pretty good talent also, but maybe not as good as some other teams. And I thought it was
Yeah.
interesting last night after the game also. Coach Pearl talked about here we are playing in a college basketball game, one of the biggest games of the year for Alabama and Auburn, and the Iron Bowl rivalry, whatever you want to call it. And after the game, he talks about Janai Broome and what a great game he had. And he said, that would be a great video to send out. I'm assuming he meant to the
Yeah.
NBA guys because of the
Yeah.
things that Janai did last night. So everybody's thinking about the NBA.
Yeah. And look, it's hard for them not to. Everybody's thinking about it. But to Broome's credit, he had a good year last year. He's got what, 50 plus career double doubles.
Yeah.
So you got a guy like him, then you have a guy like Bediako at Alabama. Well, Bediako was going to be a second round pick. He kind of went from nowhere to playing into that role. He left. Broome was going to be a second round pick. What did he do? He stayed. Now what's he going to be? Bediako's out of the league, dropped out. He made a bad choice. He wasn't as good as he thought he was. Broom decided to stay, and now look what's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can score. He's adept with footwork inside. He can finish left or right. He's good defensively. That's a guy that's going to have a shot at the
Hmm.
NBA, and he stayed, even though he was going to be drafted. He made the right choice, and that gets back to the Bruce Pearl relationship with the staff and Bruce Pearl to that guy making the right decision.
Yeah.
I can't stand these guys that go out thinking, because their uncle tells them how great they are, and so they go to the NBA. It's a different world, man. You
Yeah.
know, and now that you can get paid in college, you should be even more wary of going out before you're ready.
Yeah. You can almost make more in college than you can in the NBA in some cases. But the one
Yeah,
thing I don't like about Broom is when he shot that shot last night, and when he goes when he posts up, most of the time when he shoots it, he's falling away from the basket. But again, I'm being nitpicky.
he
And
had 25, Doug,
yes, I know. He was the best we had last night. And the other
and
guy
15 boards and 5 blocks, by the way.
you mentioned staying in school, and the other
Yeah,
example of that, of course, is Jalen Williams,
yeah.
who has stayed at Auburn and stayed through Jabari and said, "My time is coming." Maybe, and Bruce told him that. What do you think of his chances in the NBA? Is he a guy that they would really look at?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a shot for sure. He shoots good enough outside that he needs to stretch it out a little bit, but I think all indications from how he shoots, he should be able to do that, right?
Mm.
He's one of those guys. He's an efficient scorer normally. He doesn't need a lot of shots to help you out offensively. I kind of like that. He can shoot 10 or 12 shots and have 20 because he's going to get to the line. He's going to be efficient. He's going to take good shots. So yeah, hey, look, he shot what 77% in the first 5 games of the SEC. Not so great last night, but he still, he didn't get whitewashed last night. He still hit 3 shots and
Yeah.
did things. So I think certainly he's got a chance to play at the next level.
Mm-hmm. Talking
But
with Scott.
not many are surefire, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
many guys, we talked about it the other day, the point guard that left Auburn after a year,
Sharif
Sharif.
Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't ready. He's not
No.
ready. Is he talented? Oh yeah, he's incredibly talented, but he was no more ready than you and I were.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's gone, and he's going to just try to hang on and try to make it 5 or 6 years. Whereas if you stayed and honed your game in this league, you might have had a chance to get that second contract in the NBA, and
Yeah.
now you're not going to get it.
Really,
So
really an
it's
interesting
sad to
decision.
me. It's
Yeah.
sad to me what these guys, their decision making on making that immediate dollar instead of that second contract, $100 million. That's the one you need to be focused on.
Yeah. I was going to say that too. Sad was the word that came into my mind, that some people
Man,
encourage them to make that jump when they're not ready. And Sharif was
yeah,
obviously a guy at Auburn where you thought, he can get to the bucket and he can throw the alley oop pass, but then they figured him out and he couldn't hit the jump shot. He really needed to
right.
work on his jump shot
And he's
as
small
opposed,
anyway.
yeah,
I mean, he's not 6'5".
yeah,
So
as opposed to a guy I was going to say like Isaac Okoro, who was ready after his first year
and he's
and
bigger.
made the jump. Yeah.
He's a bigger player. But it's like I think of Kyrie Irving. You know, he was injured most of his freshman year, but he was special, so he made it.
Mm-hmm.
But how many Kyrie Irvings are there? Not many.
Not a lot.
Not many Jordans, not many Irv. But these guys today think, oh, well, I'm going to be great. No, that's a different world up there, man.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're going to cut you and not even think about you again. So you better make sure you're ready.
But I put you on the G League team. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, and I would argue now, to your point a while ago, if you're at a major school and you're one of the better players, you might make more money at this college level now than the G League.
very well could.
Another reason not to go. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, let's touch on some football quickly here, Scott.
yeah,
Interesting recruiting situation recently with Ryan Williams. He had Auburn on his list. He decommitted from Alabama. He had Texas on his list. He said he was going to announce February 9th on his birthday, and he's already committed again, revisited Alabama and committed to the Crimson Tide. Was that a situation for Alabama that they had to stem the tide in recruiting with all these guys leaving? Like they wanted to make a statement like Ryan Williams, is going to be at Alabama?
I think they had to prove, because the question mark I would have about DeBoer or anybody that comes in, I had the same question mark about Harsin, if you remember.
Hmm.
You come in and you have no ties to the South. I got to question whether you could recruit here. It's different, as you know. I mean, it's just different here. So to me, that was it didn't answer all the questions because he was committed to Alabama first. So it's not like you got him out of nowhere, but certainly to lose him, but to recruit well enough to get him back is a big get for DeBoer. Look, Auburn signed four excellent receivers. Would Williams have helped them? Yes, but that's why Free signed four,
Yeah.
and so signed four real good ones, two 5-star and two 4-star, if I remember correctly. So they're fine. It sounds weird to say they don't need Williams, but I really don't think they need Williams. Alabama needed him for the reasons you just stated, and to show that we're not losing everybody. And I really thought it was odd that all these receivers were leaving Alabama because Michael Penix threw 550 times last year. You know how many times Milroe threw? 328.
Yeah. Almost
Why
double.
would you leave the university where they're going to throw 200 more passes if
Yeah.
you're a wide receiver? That makes
Yeah.
no sense.
No.
So it was a good get for Alabama. I'm not sure he's Julio Jones like some are saying. I'm sure he's talented. We'll see. Wide receivers, sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. The battle goes on in recruiting.
Yeah.
And now we have the situation opening up in Michigan with Harbaugh leaving. Those guys have 30 days. So everybody's going to be trying to pick some of those players off.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Football is just you have to literally re-recruit your team every year. I don't know how these coaches do it.
I
And
don't,
that's why these programs have general managers now, like an NFL team. You've got to have guys that worry about the money you have and who's getting what, and we got to balance the budget. I can only pay this guy X. It's professional football. Let's be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
What is
And that's what Auburn has just done, hired a general manager from LSU
absolutely.
coming over. So that exactly what you said. You've got to keep up with all of the portal and everything else that's going on. It's hard to do. And anyway,
What are we paying this guy?
the circus goes on
Isn't
in
that
college football.
amazing? Yeah, we used to worry about people cheating, and now we're openly saying, well, what are we going to pay this? But what can we afford to pay this cat that we're trying to, it's really shocking to me what's happening in collegiate sports.
We'll have a lot less cheating, though, right, with Harbaugh out of the college game,
Sure,
don't you think?
sure. Yeah, that's happening. There's no tampering going on.
No, never.
Yeah,
All right,
never.
Scott. Well, listen, appreciate the visit. Senior Bowl next week. Come on down and see us. And
That'll be good.
I would think
Yeah,
Alabama's got a few players, Auburn's got a few players, and Bo Nix is going to be interesting to watch.
absolutely. And they're really high on Bo, and I'm kind of like wait and see on him with his size. But Drew Brees was 6 foot, could run around, and certainly Bo Nix has the arm strength and the feet to get there. So we'll see what happens. That's going to be interesting to keep an eye on.
Yep. All right. Again, appreciate the visit, and we'll talk
Yes, sir.
soon again soon.
Okay, buddy.
All right.
Thank you.